So beautiful people, let's talk about the $1,000,000 question. What is next? What is next for the pride of Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico, the greatest Mexican fighter of all time? Listen, I've said this on my live stream, on my watch along for this fight, even though I picked Bud Crawford. On my live stream, I kept speaking for like 30 minutes, breaking down why Bud will win the fight, but I said this word for word. I said, listen, after this fight, even though I believe that Canelo will lose, but I will give him all the respect in the world, and it will be far from over when you talk about his journey. Now, let's talk about what's next for the amazing Canelo Alvarez, the man who stood with the people of Gaza and the man who donated $30 million to the people of Gaza. That alone will forever make me a massive Canelo admirer and supporter. It is okay to lose. It is absolutely okay to lose. Everybody loses, not just in the ring, but in life. And the ring is the fitting description of how life goes. You might have good days, bad days, ups, downs, wins, losses, spectacular moments, the highs of highs, the lowest of the lows. But it's all about how you handle it, how you handle these moments. And let me tell you, Canelo Alvarez, the man was so humble, was so gracious in defeat, and you love to see it. Now, I have said this before, that the first boxing match I ever watched was Canelo versus Floyd, and I loved Canelo back then, kept rooting for the man, but then some things happened. He tested positive for PEDs, he ducked David Benavidez. I love Canelo, but I will always give it to you straight. He did test positive, he did duck David, but I still supported the man, especially when I found out that he stood with the people of Gaza. But nonetheless, let's talk about what's next for the legendary and charismatic Canelo Alvarez. I believe, in my opinion, what's next for Canelo is that he should give it his all now. Now you got nothing to lose. Now you have no belt. Now people are already writing you off. So why not move to 175 and fight David Benavidez for the 175-pound WBC title? Listen to this, beautiful people. Just imagine. Imagine Canelo comes back next May in a warm-up fight, versus like someone good. But next September, fighting David Benavidez in Allegiant Stadium again. Listen, everybody will be riding against Canelo. Listen, I love Canelo, but including me, I will be picking David Benavidez by knockout. But I love Canelo. Even if he loses that fight, so what? So what? That doesn't mean anything. Why? It's because Canelo already cemented his legacy. And there's no losing in that fight. Because if he loses to David, he can simply say, hey, listen. Everyone will all say that, listen, Canelo was washed. Canelo was already past his best. He lost to a man who's 3 weights below him. So, of course, he was going to lose to David Benavidez. But imagine if he beats David. What if he actually moves to 175, takes this year to regroup, comes back next May, with a solid normal opponent, and then steps up to David? And let me tell you, by that time David Benavidez might very well become undisputed at 175. Let me tell you, because I believe David would destroy Dimitri Bivol. Much respect to Dimitri Bivol, fellow legend, fellow Hall of Famer, but I believe David Benavidez would knock him out. But it's not because Bivol is overrated or this or that. No way. I actually picked Bivol to beat Canelo. But it's simply because David Benavidez is an absolute monster. And the Mexican monster is the fitting nickname for him. But just imagine this, beautiful people. Canelo regrouping. And by the time next year comes, he will be 36 years old. So no one will expect anything from him. They will say, he's much smaller than David, much older, already lost the big fight last year. But just imagine the scenes. Imagine the type of fight that we're gonna get when Canelo fights David. If Canelo fights David, it would be so iconic, so historic, and I believe it could very well actually be bigger than Canelo versus Bud. Mexican versus Mexican, even though David is Mexican Ecuadorian. But listen, David Benavidez is the Mexican monster. Don't ever discredit David Benavidez to build up Canelo. There's always room for both of them. And this is what I believe. I believe that Canelo is amazing. but I also believe that David is amazing. I believe that Canelo is unbelievable, but I also believe that David is unbelievable. I believe that Canelo is a monster, but guess what? David is younger, bigger, and definitely hungrier, and I believe he would beat Canelo, and I believe he could possibly definitely stop Canelo. Listen, Bud Crawford hurt Canelo in that last round. In the last 10 seconds, Bud hurt him. Love Canelo Alvarez, but I gotta give it to you straight. I've always said David would beat him. And listen, Canelo knows. Canelo knows what's up with David. And if Canelo saw an easy fight versus David, he would have fought him. But the reason why Canelo kept dodging him is because he knows that fighting David Benavidez is a tough night in the office, let me tell you. Win, lose or draw. Listen, Canelo can beat him. No question Canelo can defy the odds. Canelo is a legend. And you can never write off a legend. And every legend and all-time great, they have one more left in them when they are doubted the most. And that would be the case versus David. I would doubt him, you would doubt him, and the entire boxing world would doubt him. But guess what? There would be no lose-lose situation for Canelo. It would be only win-win for Canelo. If he beats him, oh my God. Oh my God. Imagine Canelo beats David and retires. Everyone will forget every single negative mishap or loss that Canelo ever suffered. And if he loses, we will all say that, listen, honestly, David was always going to beat him. Way bigger, way younger, way stronger, way more active when you talk about the punch output, and stylistically. Listen, stylistically, it is a horrible matchup for Canelo. But Canelo doesn't have anything to lose. He would be actually fighting for David's belt. David will have everything to lose after talking all this talk about Canelo. If you lose to him, especially if you lose to a Canelo past his prime, you're going to have a very tough time, let me tell you. But even if you beat him, they're all going to say you beat a washed Canelo. But I believe just the fight alone, the stylistic matchup alone, would live on forever when you talk about the excitement, when you talk about the build-up. Listen, the build-up to Canelo versus Crawford was humble, respectful, and classy. But the build-up to Canelo versus David would be fierce, would be violent, would be chaotic, and most importantly, would be historic. They can charge pay-per-views for that press conference if the fight goes down, and let me tell you, it would break records. The fight would break records, and the punch output inside the ring would break records, and both men would look to break one another's will. And I truly believe Canelo versus David would be one of the greatest fights of our time. Even though Canelo is past his best, I believe. I've said this in my fight breakdown. But listen. You can never ever count Canelo out. And like I said, I'm always going to be honest to you, beautiful people. You know how much I love Canelo. You know how much credit I've given Canelo. But I believe David would be the first man to knock him out. Not knock him out cold. When you talk about a knockout, it can happen in many ways. You can talk about accumulation, body, corner stoppage, but David will keep on coming, and David's high guard and underrated. You know, David is actually in the top 5 for punches landed versus punches absorbed. He's in the top 5 differential. I believe he's number 4 or number 3. So David definitely got underrated defense, let me tell you. His high guard, the way that he rolls with shots, even though he squares up a lot of times. And listen, Canelo will have a lot of openings in the fight, but that's what I want. But in reality, will we probably get the fight? Unfortunately, we will probably never see David fight Canelo. It's because Canelo got so much pride, and it's because I don't believe that Canelo is at a stage now where he's gonna go and fight big, strong, young, hungry guys. I believe that Canelo now will pick and choose his fights, and rightfully so. Listen, all the legends have done it. All of them, without a single exception, they all picked and chose who they fought, not just in their prime, but especially in the end of their careers. You gotta be honest. But just imagine And listen, I love David and I love Canelo. But let's say Canelo gets destroyed in that fight. I swear to God, I wouldn't lose a single ounce of respect, and I will give him all the respect and credit in the world. This is just me, beautiful people. Whenever one of my favorite fighters loses, nothing will change for me. Because if you love and support a fighter, it's not about their record, it's not about their accolades, it's about them as humans. And Canelo, let me tell you, the man is an exceptional human being, standing with the people of Gaza, giving it his all, standing for what's right with his Mexican people, with the raids that's going on in the States, with ICE and this and that. Canelo got the heart of gold. And I really, really want to see that David fight, even though I believe that he would lose. But I don't care about the outcome. I never cared and I never will. I just want to see historic moments. And I believe that fight got history written all over it.